All right, time for Football at 4. It is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Geoff Mosher, Mosher Monday edition of Football at 4, brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. They want to get you approved today. Matt Blatt Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. We got plenty to dive into on today's edition of Football at 4. The Eagles have signed all of their rookies, including Jalen Reagor, including Jalen Hurts, and the rest of the bunch. We will get into their roles on the team and more as Geoff Mosher is set to join us here for today's edition of Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. What can the rookies and the coaches do, though? That will be a big topic of conversation. So let's get into it now with Geoff Mosher here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. We are getting into training camp time now. I mean, we are getting closer and closer, and I guess we still have no deal, right? I mean, the NFL, it was a crazy weekend, especially yesterday. You had Carson Wentz, you had Zach Ertz of the Eagles, and many others around the league really putting a statement out there, putting the pressure on the NFL to step up here.
Yeah, they did. I mean, certainly the players had their say. They have made it all about health and safety protocols. You're noticing that a lot of their tweets say that A, they want to play, B, they want to be safe. You're not seeing a lot of people tweet anything about money, so it makes it a little bit different than what we saw in the owners versus players fight in Major League Baseball, which was, pretty much all about money. Not that money isn't involved with what's going on right now. That certainly is a part of it, but it also ties into the health and safety. There's just some unanswered questions right now, and they're going through it. And I believe I saw a report today from the NFL Network that there was some more optimism that something might be done soon. And I think it's really important if they want training camp to start on the 28th to have something in place. Because if you're an NFL head coach right now, what are you doing? You don't know if you've got 2 preseason games to prepare for, 1 preseason game, 0, and that honestly impacts your entire training camp schedule. Most times you have a preseason game, you have a day off before or a light practice before, then you have the game, and then you have a day off after. That's 3 days that would be impacted if you were to have 0 preseason games, right? You would then have to find out what you're going to do those 3 days, but then the whole schedule is impacted based on ramping up and coming back down. And obviously we've seen these reports about the players wanting to at least start off with a certain amount of time before they even get into contact practices and things like that. So for the sake of having camp start on time and this thing looking real come September, they got to come to an agreement soon.
I know this might sound ridiculous, but do you think it's possible that the NFL didn't plan for it to last this long and now they're somewhat scrambling to come up with all of the details?
Yeah, no, I think that it's just strange, Hunter. I would say it's very inconsistent with the NFL, right? I mean, in February, in March, the combine goes off and then the draft goes off. They do it virtually, and then yes, they have to cancel the camps, but they never ever said that anything was going to change, right? They were always full steam ahead, full steam ahead, full steam ahead, which made you think that they had a plan for every single situation and obviously, things to work out. So to be this close to the start of camp and still be far apart and, according to the players, still kind of not answering really important questions on health and safety makes it seem like the NFL was asleep at the wheel.
Yeah, it's kind of odd that we've gotten to the week of some teams getting ready to report, and there are high-profile players. Essentially, Russell Wilson's like, hey, my wife's pregnant. I'd like to have some sort of plan on what's going on here. I know Carson Wentz, you can throw him into that category. Zach Ertz, where they're all saying, we want to play, but, hey, how about a handbook here,
Yeah, I mean, everybody just wants to know what the protocols are, what they can do, what they can't do. Are they being safe? I mean, obviously the frequency of testing appears to be a big part of this hang-up. The players want to be tested as much as possible. And so, I can't see, that's the part, maybe going back to Hunter's question, that can't be a hang-up, right? I mean, if they want to be tested, test them. Test them as early as you can. You're the NFL. You should have the resources to be able to do this. I mean, I get that there's probably going to be a revenue loss in some form or fashion this year if there are no fans in the stands. But if you want to have a game that is safe and you don't have a bubbled environment, then by all means, you should be testing as frequently as possible.
Well, it's interesting you bring up the bubble environment because Mark Cuban says it's easier for the NBA to pull it off because of the bubble. Do you think that he is right?
I've thought about that, Hunter, and I think that he might be right, but I've also tried to look at the alternative and say, well, couldn't you make the argument that an outbreak in a bubble environment would be harder to contain because everybody's kind of in the same area and they're playing games against each other, as opposed to teams all spread out around the country like they normally are? If the Eagles have an issue, they take care of it internally and they get the guys that need to be done, and those guys are not in contact with players from other teams, right? And especially if there are no preseason games. So I do wonder, and we haven't seen it yet, and hopefully we won't. I think that the best argument is, as long as you have the testing, as long as you have the protocols, as long as you have the monitoring going on 24/7, 365, then you should be able to do your best to control an outbreak, whether you're in a bubble or whether you're spread out. But I do wonder if Mark's right about that. I know that's something that to me is yet to be proven.
Yeah, and I know that as we inch a little closer here, that it seems that testing is going to have some sort of definitive and defined rhyme or reason. That's what really held baseball back. Once they even got an agreement on money, it was, all right, well, now we're here. We're not getting test results back in time. We're not getting them for a couple of days. You can't have this stuff lingering over the start of this season.
You can't, and that's why it's amazing that we're this close to it and they still don't have answers on things like that, things like testing, like how many preseason games there are going to be. What are they going to do about the financial ramifications of this year? Are they going to spread it out over several years, which is what the players suggested, which I think is smart to do? Or is it going to just all factor into next year's cap, which maybe the owners would like because it's just a 1-year hit? But how do you then turn around and tell the players who have risked everything this year that they're all going to make significantly less money? Just this one class of free agents and extension-worthy players next year are really going to suffer. And then after that, everything will go back to normal.
Well, what happens then, What happens? Do the players strike? You got guys like Drew Brees, J.J. Watt, Russell Wilson. They're saying basically if the NFL doesn't do their part to keep players healthy, there's no football in 2020. Do they strike?
It would have to be a strike and not a lockout, because the owners aren't locking the players out. They're saying, please report, okay? And the players are saying, well, you've seen rookies report. I'm sure guys will start to report here, but if there is not an agreement by the 28th, I have a feel then the players are going to have to step back and say, no, we're not playing, and that would be a strike.
All right, a couple other things on that front real fast, which is I believe there was a report floating around about one preseason game. NFL Network, yes, Tom Pelissero reporting the league's latest proposal includes one preseason game. Do you think that that is a hang-up?
Well, I think it's a little bit of a hang-up on both ends. I think, the players want none, and the owners would like one. You do get a little TV revenue in there from one game that would obviously be on the air. But I think there's I read this, I can't remember who reported. It might have been Albert Breer or someone else that said, there is a contingent of players who would at least like one preseason game because they're fringe players and they want an opportunity to showcase themselves for the rest of the league. And if you give them 0 preseason games, they don't have any ability to do that. They're not being seen. They always tell you in normal years to, even if you're a guy if you're an offensive lineman on a team that has a lot of good offensive linemen, don't think that you can't make a team. It just might not be the team you're with right now, but you'll get on tape and scouts will see you. And we see that all the time. But without a preseason showcase, I don't know how those players would be able to latch on with someone else unless they're just signing someone based on what they saw from college tape, which will happen for some, but not for everybody. So I can see a small contingent of players that would like at least one preseason game, but I don't think that this is going to be the hang-up. For example, like if there's 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 issues now, and they hammer out all of them except preseason games, I can't imagine that one being the one that's going to really stand in the way of an agreement being done.
Football 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Geoff Mosher is with us. How much of an impact could a drop of up to $70 million be on the salary cap?
Yeah, I mean that's an NFLPA number, if I believe, right? That's D. Smith saying that some experts have said that teams can suffer a $70 million drop in revenue. I don't know if that's a real the most accurate estimate or just the most extreme estimate. You know, we had Andrew Brandt on Inside the Birds TV a couple of weeks back with myself and Adam Kaplan, and he said that gate receipts account for about 20% of NFL revenue, which is not as much as you might think, which just goes to show you how much TV money, media money, really drives the sport and the revenue of the sport, not gate receipts. So if you're talking about 20% hit, I don't know that equates to $70 million a team. I haven't done the math like that. But I do think the smart thing to do would be, which is what the players have put out, is let's try to spread that whatever hit there is over a couple of years so you're not penalizing one group or one class of football players in one particular year, especially the year after they went and, put a lot of their health risks up to play football.
Wild stuff. We also have today the news here for the state of New Jersey that no fans for Jets or Giants games. I also hear Rutgers will also be affected by that as well, that Governor Murphy made the decision in conjunction with the teams involved. That we heard about the Eagles last week. It was they were on, then they were off, and then they were kind of back on. And there's some hope that there will be fans at Eagles games anyway. I haven't heard about the Phillies. It sounded like they were talking about more Eagles. But today that the Giants and Jets, and it looks like Rutgers will also be affected by this as well.
Well, it does seem that every week that passes, we learn something new about either a sports team or league, whether it's, pro, high school, college, and what their intentions are. And some of you've seen some leagues like the Ivy League cancel. You've seen some try to push, like the Big Ten, just not having non-conference games. And then it doesn't necessarily mean it's set in stone. We saw what happened with the Eagles, where at first the city says no big events, and then they come out the next day after the Eagles make a call and say, well, maybe the Eagles don't count here. It's all kind of fluid.
Well, this is a little different. This is a little different, though, because the Jets and the Giants both put out a joint statement essentially acknowledging this. So it looks like the Jets and Giants are pretty much resigned to the fact that they're going to be playing in an empty building.
Yeah, I'm kind of resigned. Most people are resigned to that anyway. Now, it's still fluid. I think that can still change, even though that's what they announced for their plans right now. I thought the wording of the release left it open so that things could change, but we'll see. I mean, is anybody going to – here's the interesting thing, and Andrew Brandt brought this up, and we also rebranded that interview in today's podcast, Inside the Birds. What's going to happen with the NFL if – college football, if high school football, if any of these sports right now, the NBA, major leagues, if they go through a case where it just doesn't work and they all have to stop playing sports or completely put their season off until the spring or something, is the NFL just going to keep going blinders on as if this is not going to impact them? That'll be the interesting thing to see. And we've got about now, a month and a half to see what changes, what results from the NBA, the NHL, and Major League Baseball, and see if that impacts NFL play or their decision making at all.
Geoff Mosher, Football 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It is, very fluid. Everything's happening, and that's why it's great having Football 4 every day. We get you updated on all the latest news. Some news around the Eagles today. Let's get into it. Jalen Reagor signed. Now, there's an interesting story about this. That he actually agreed to terms before getting on the plane, and he had his travel date pushed back. So explain what happened with this Reagor deal.
Yeah, I just think it's very interesting that you haven't seen a ton of first-round picks sign lately. And it makes sense, and I think Adam Kaplan had brought this up on a recent Inside the Birds podcast, that, normally teams want their people, their doctors, to look at guys and examine them and evaluate them before they say you passed the physical and we're going to sign you. And it certainly seemed like that could be a case with Jalen Reagor and anybody else who hadn't signed up until today. I was told over the weekend, on Saturday, I reported that Jalen had plans to fly to Philadelphia on Sunday. And then on Monday morning, today, he was going to get the examination, the physical and everything, and sign if everything was right. For whatever reason, the Eagles decided to change. He actually had the flight. The flight got changed to today. So he flew in today, but he agreed to terms. And you notice a lot of the Eagles, the way they've reported is all these guys have agreed to terms. I don't think they've all passed their physicals yet. So, obviously you agree to terms, you pass your physical, and then you can sign. So I'm not sure how many people have actually signed on the dotted line more so than just agreed to terms, because it's 4:15 here right now. I think Jalen Reagor is supposed to be landing in Philadelphia right around now. So I just thought it was very interesting that the teams wait so long because they want their own people, and then you get this close, and they're like, we'll agree to terms, fly in, then we'll sign you.
Will all of the picks be announced today?
They have been already.
Yeah. Okay. They all have officially been. Okay.
Yep. All have agreed to terms.
Yeah. Now
the funny thing is, it's like, well, what happens now? So they're here. What happens?
Yes. Before we get to what happens, there was an interesting nugget in the Hurts contract that apparently has some people kind of raising eyebrows. Have you seen that?
Just the fact that he's had workout bonuses that are similar to what Drew Lock's had last year, and Drew Lock was drafted a little higher.
Yeah, so if what is the significance of he received workout bonuses in year 3 and 4, similar to Locke, which is a quarterback premium. So, it's the conspiracy theorists of, that's the years that you can get out of the Wentz deal.
Yeah, I mean, you can read into that a little bit. I don't know that the money is so it's so great that you think, then they obviously plan for him to be the quarterback. If anything, what you do is you go off the year before's contracts, and then you get a little bit more because it's 1 year later. For example, not every player who's drafted in the 20s over the last few years has had all of their all of their base salaries guaranteed. But Jalen Reagor, as Adam Kaplan reported, has guaranteed base salaries for all 4 years of his rookie deal. So I don't know. What does that mean? It just means that the Eagles, have a commitment to this guy, and they wanted to guarantee his base salary. The agent was able to get it done. I believe the player taken last year at 21st overall, or same slot as Jalen, was the Packers safety, Darnell Savage. He also got all 4 years guaranteed, but not everybody in that neighborhood does. So the Eagles gave a little more guaranteed money in that regard to Jalen Reagor. But it doesn't mean anything other than Jalen Reagor is their first-round pick, and they want him on the team.
So what can the rookies and coaches do? I mean, once they're signed, now they're going to report, I guess, sometime next week. What's next for these rookies?
Yeah, I don't know that they can do much. I mean, I imagine with Jeffrey Lurie, being in charge, and we talked, weeks and weeks ago about how Jeffrey had already mandated that the coaches were going to be in the area by the 10th, and then they were going to quarantine and test. I'm sure these guys these rookies coming in from all, parts of the country and taking airplanes are going to have to do, I would guess they will have to do the same. They'll have to be in a hotel room. They'll have to be quarantined. I'm sure they'll all be tested within the next few days. And, all of them will be hoping, just like most of the players and coaches, that an agreement is worked out so that they'll actually be able to get on the field by the time the 28th rolls around, or even if it's pushed back a couple of days.
Which goes back to our original conversation, making it very important for them to get this done so that the coaches can go through with the plans and get these rookies out there who have already missed in tons of valuable time. I mean, think about the fact that most of these rookies would have gone through multiple mini camps and would have had a whole bunch of grass time. Now, nothing, zero. I mean, this is unprecedented, and they think the fact that they're not going to most likely have 1 to no preseason games.
Exactly. I keep saying it, and I hope I'm wrong, but I expect that it's going to be a difficult September for the viewers as far as what you're used to seeing and what you're going to see. I mean, think how much we've complained over the last few years about how bad tackling has become because of the lack of physicality and padded practices at training camp. Well, now, double that. I mean, it's just going to be a completely different style of training camp. And for all intents and purposes, and you have a lot of young quarterbacks in the league, you got a lot of new coaches in the NFL, a lot of new systems, a lot of new schemes. I think there's going to be some pretty ugly football early on. But, I mean, we'll all be thankful that there's football.
Right, I was going to say, at least there will be some football, hopefully.
It doesn't stop people from complaining about it the day after, though,
Oh, no doubt about that. Now, Moshe, we'll end with this. what is the proper amount of time to respond to somebody after you text them, hey, are you at the beach?
What is the proper response time? Well, it depends. If you're at the beach and you text somebody, you might go into the, if you don't hear back in like 2 or 3 minutes, you may go in the water and you might spend 25, 30 minutes or more in the water.
Well, don't you
especially
think
on a
maybe
98-degree day, right?
Just maybe.
I don't know. I think it's flexible. It's fluid.
You go text after you're out of the water then you go in the water, you text after the water because maybe the person on the other side wants a response.
He went 2 or 3 minutes. Is 2 or 3 minutes like would you say that's a fair response time?
Absolutely not.
No.
Well, I don't know, man. I'm looking through my scrolling here now. Mike texted me that he was at Essex at 1:57 p.m. and I texted back at 2:47. So what's that? About 15 minutes? Yeah. I guess but to be fair,
look,
Mike has
my
always
point
said,
was more, I said, so Mosher texted me that he was on the beach in Margate, and right. I actually called you within 3 minutes. No answer. So then I texted back and said, well, I'm on Essex, 3 blocks away. You would you're thinking, he's going to be checking his phone. He just texted me. He's going to want to say like, hey, he got back to me. I just told him where I was. And then he didn't respond for over an hour. And I'm thinking, what the heck? Did he just text and said I'm at the beach and then totally forgot about it?
Well, in fairness, though, I felt like whatever, the expression where you're spitting into the wind or you're shouting to the clouds. That's how I felt like I was texting you, because you have always told me you're a pool guy, not a beach guy.
That's
so
true.
I didn't even think you would actually be at the beach. I was shocked when
I
saw you called
back
and
at
texted
you
me
like
back.
this.
Yeah, well, I'm a baseball guy, but I like other sports too.
Well, there you go. All right. Well, now I know. I'll know next time I'm at the beach to give you a day, at least 24 hours notice.
So finally, after an hour, he did meet, he checked it and called me, and then he came down, and we had a couple of cold ones. And then before I left, I checked to see if he was still down at his spot, and I walked down there and met up with him and his lovely daughters and wife and friends.
Yes, and your girlfriend was very nice to my daughters. It was nice. I didn't have to,
a little bocce ball
attached to him. Yeah, it was great.
Yep. Bocce ball. They offered
now,
some
did you
White
tell
Claws.
Hunter you had at least 5 White Claws while you were on the beach?
His wife nicely offered the White Claw. I respectfully declined.
Now, Moshe, did you have any low-cal IPAs?
Yeah, I took Mike up on an offer. Actually, it was his girlfriend who offered me a low-cal IPA, and I enjoyed it. It was pretty good.
Gil didn't even offer you the IPA.
He was no. He had his own beer with him. So it wasn't like he just walked up with no beer in hand. He had his own. He walked there with his own beer.
I did. And when I finished the beer, I
leaving,
stuck it in my pocket, the empty bottle. And then the girlfriend was nice enough to notice and say, hey, would you like one of our low-cal
because he was leaving to go back. He said, all right, I'm going to get going. And she said, before you go, you want to try one of these low-cal?
See, I think that's on you to then offer that to Moshe. And I'm a little disappointed.
I knew his daughters were there and his wife. I didn't want to hold him.
Uh-huh. Nice excuse.
All right. Well,
it was a fun time regardless.
Yeah, well, next time I'd like you to maybe check your return message a little faster.
I will do. In fact, I will give you 24 hours notice next time.
Yeah, that'd be nice too. Hey, I'm going to be at the beach tomorrow. Not, hey, I'm sitting on the beach. I just happened. I literally parked the car. I said, hey, Mosher is 3 blocks away. That's nice. I called you right away. No answer. Then I text you. Hey, I'm on Essex. By the way, he says, in Margate? I'm thinking, oh, my God, the guy's 3 blocks away. He doesn't even know what block I'm at.
Such a shitty.
I just didn't realize you would be in Margate. I just had no idea that would be all the beaches that you would be in Margate. I was surprised.
I grew up there, man.
I know. Home turf. As you said many times, you're just not a beach guy.
That's right. All right, it's the Inside the Birds podcast, Football at 4. Geoff Mosher, he's back on Wednesday. And, of course, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. All right, man, take care.
You got it, bro.
What do you think? 2 or 3 minutes. He says, that's it. I'm dumping in the water.
I did not like his philosophy that he remembers you as a pool guy. I mean, he pulled that out of nowhere.
Yeah, my girlfriend posted a picture of us on the beach. Schweim said the same thing. I thought you were a pool guy. I said, yeah, I'm a baseball guy too, but I like other sports.